She wheeled herself through that cafe door, looked straight at him, and burst into tears. Not soft, polite tears, the kind that shake your whole chest. Then she lifted her hands and signed something so raw, so brutally honest, that the man sitting across from her felt like he'd been punched right through the ribs. He should have walked out. Every instinct told him to. He didn't. And what happened next, over coffee, over silence, over two broken lives colliding at the worst possible table on the worst possible afternoon, will make you rethink everything you thought you knew about grief, about love, and about what it means to still be here. Drop your city in the comments. I want to see how far this story travels. Follow the channel, and don't you dare leave before the ending. Noah Jensen had exactly one rule about Saturdays. Nobody touched his Saturdays. Not his boss, not his mother-in-law, not the plumber who'd been promising to show up for 3 weeks. Saturday was the day he and Mia made pancakes with too much syrup, watched cartoons she was probably getting too old for, and didn't talk about anything heavier than whether the dog next door was, in fact, named Gerald or Gerald Jr. It wasn't a glamorous life, but it was his, and for 3 years it had been enough. So when Marcus called at 7:45 on a Saturday morning, before the pancakes, before the cartoons, before Noah had even gotten the coffee going, he answered only because he assumed something was on fire. "Tell me someone's in the hospital," Noah said. "Good morning to you, too." "Marcus, nobody's in the hospital. Relax. Listen, I need you to do something for me today." Noah pulled the phone away from his ear, stared at it like it had personally offended him, and put it back. "No. You haven't even heard what it is." "I don't need to. It's Saturday." "It's one afternoon, man. 2 hours tops. You go, you sit, you have a cup of coffee, you come home. That's it." Noah opened the cabinet, reached for the coffee grounds, and tried to remember why he'd given Marcus his number in the first place. They'd been friends since college. 22 years of friendship, which apparently earned Marcus the right to call before 8 a.m. on the one morning Noah asked the universe for peace. "What is it?" Noah said, because asking was the fastest way to shut it down. "A date?" The coffee grounds went back in the cabinet. "No," Noah said. "Noah?" "Absolutely not." "Just listen." "I'm hanging up." "Her name is Harper, and she's incredible, and you're going to regret it if you say no." Noah didn't hang up, which was his first mistake. He stood in his kitchen in yesterday's t-shirt and socks with a hole in the left toe, and he made the catastrophic error of continuing to listen. "I'm not ready for that," he said. And even he could hear that it came out more tired than angry. "That's what you said 18 months ago." "Because it was true 18 months ago." "Noah, come on. Claire has been gone 3 years. 3 years. She would not want—" "Don't." The word came out sharp enough that Marcus went quiet. "Don't tell me what Claire would want. You didn't know her the way I did." A long pause. "You're right," Marcus said. "I'm sorry. That was out of line." Another pause. "But I still think you should go." Noah pressed the heel of his hand against his eye socket. In the next room, he could hear Mia starting to move around. The creak of her bed, the soft thud of her feet hitting the floor. The little girl shuffle toward the bathroom. 6 years old last March, turning 7 in the fall. Growing up in a house where Saturday was sacred because her father had nothing else to hold on to. "Who is she?" Noah finally said. Marcus exhaled like he'd been holding his breath. "Her name's Harper Ellis. She's 34. She's a graphic designer, does freelance work, really talented. She's funny. She's smart. She reads actual books, which I know is important to you for some reason. It's not a strange thing to. She volunteers at an art program for kids on Tuesday evenings. I think you genuinely like her, Noah. I really do. I wouldn't set you up with someone I didn't believe in." Noah was quiet for a moment. "You said she's incredible." "She is." "What aren't you telling me?" Another pause, a half-beat too long. "Nothing," Marcus said. She's been through some things. But so have you. That's kind of the point." "What things?" "Look, why don't you just meet her? Hargrove's Cafe, 2 o'clock. Just coffee. If it's terrible, you leave, and I owe you a beer." "You owe me significantly more than a beer." "Deal. 2 o'clock. Don't wear that gray shirt. It makes you look like you're attending a funeral."
"Marcus."
2 o'clock. See you on the other side." He hung up. Noah stood in the kitchen for a full 30 seconds. Then Mia appeared in the doorway in her pajamas, hair still smashed sideways from sleep, holding her stuffed elephant by one ear.
"Who was that?"
she said. "Marcus."
"What did he want?"
Noah looked at his daughter. She had Claire's eyes, that clear, pale green that caught the light in a way that still, after 3 years, made his chest tighten. She had his stubbornness, though. That she'd inherited fair and square. "He wants me to have coffee with someone," Noah said. Mia considered this with the gravity of a federal judge.
"A girl someone?"
"Yes." She considered it a little longer. Then she nodded once, as if reaching a verdict.
"Okay," she said. "Can we have pancakes first?"
He wore the gray shirt, not as an act of rebellion. He just couldn't find the other one. He got to Hargrove's Cafe 12 minutes early because Noah Jensen was constitutionally incapable of being late to anything. It was one of those small, useless virtues that survived the wreckage of the last 3 years intact. The cafe was the kind of place that had been around since before Noah was born. Booths with cracked vinyl, coffee that tasted like it had been brewing since 1987. A pie case up front that rotated the same 4 varieties on a 3-week schedule. He'd been here before, years ago, with Claire. They'd split a piece of cherry pie and argued about which movie to see afterward. He didn't sit near where they'd sat then. He chose a booth toward the back, near the window, and he ordered a black coffee and tried not to look at his phone every 45 seconds. He looked at his phone every 45 seconds. At 2:04, he texted Marcus. "She's not here." Marcus texted back. "She'll be there. Relax." At 2:09, he texted. "Still not here. Noah, relax." He was considering whether it would be acceptable to order a second cup of coffee, or whether that would make him look desperate, when the bell above the cafe door rang. He looked up, and everything shifted. She came through the door in a wheelchair, a lightweight one, the kind built for someone who uses it every day, who's gotten efficient at it, whose arms know exactly how much force to apply to every turn. She was wearing a dark blue blouse, and her hair was pulled back, and she moved with a self-possession that you only develop after a long time spent making peace with being looked at. She was looking around the cafe, scanning faces. Noah raised a hand. Their eyes met, and Harper Ellis stopped moving. She just stopped, sat completely still in the middle of Hargrove's Cafe, 10 feet from his table, and looked at him. And then something happened that Noah was not prepared for, that he would remember for the rest of his life as the single most disarming thing anyone had ever done in his presence. Her face crumpled. Not gradually, not politely. Her face crumpled the way faces crumple when something has been held together for too long and finally can't be anymore. Her eyes filled up. Her chin trembled. And then she was crying. Openly, visibly, right there in the middle of the cafe. And she lifted her hands and she started to sign. Noah didn't know sign language. He knew nothing. But the expression on her face, the urgency of her hands, the way she was looking at him like he was a problem she was desperately trying to solve. He understood that something was being communicated. He just didn't know what. A woman at the next table leaned toward her companion and whispered something. The man behind the pie case looked up. Noah felt the particular low-grade panic of a person watching the situation spiral and having no idea how to stop it. He stood up. He took a step toward her. Harper held up one hand. Stop. Sharp and clear enough that he did. Then she signed again, and this time she was also mouthing the words, visibly forming them with her lips. And Noah watched her mouth and... He wasn't sure he was reading it right, but he thought, "Please, just leave. You don't have to pretend." He stood there, 3 feet from her table, with the cafe watching them both, and for a moment he genuinely didn't know what to do. Then he sat down across from her, not in retreat, deliberately. He pulled out a chair, force of habit, before he caught himself, before the absurdity of it registered. And he sat down across from the woman who had just asked him to leave, and he put both hands flat on the table and said, "I'm not pretending." She stared at him. She had dark eyes, he noticed, the kind that didn't let you get away with anything. Her face was still wet from the crying she'd apparently decided, with some effort, to stop. She pulled her phone out, typed something rapidly, and turned it to face him. "Marcus told you I was perfect, didn't he?" It wasn't a question. Noah stared at the screen for a moment, then looked back up at her. "He said you were incredible," Noah said. Which, to be fair, is not the same thing. She looked at him for a long moment. Then she typed again. "He didn't tell you about the chair." "No," Noah said, "he did not." "Or the deaf part. He mentioned you'd been through some things." She let out a breath that might, in a different context, have been a laugh. Then she typed again. "So you sat down anyway." "I sat down anyway." Why? Noah thought about it. The honest answer was that he had no idea. The honest answer was that something about her face when she'd cried, the rawness of it, the complete absence of performance, had made leaving feel like the worst thing he could possibly do. But he wasn't sure he could say that to a stranger. "Because you asked me to leave," he said. And that seemed like a bad reason to go. She stared at him again, longer this time. Then she typed, "That doesn't make any sense." "I know," Noah said. "I'm bad at first impressions." She looked at the screen, looked at him, and then, so briefly he almost missed it, the corner of her mouth moved. She typed, "Your shirt looks like you're attending a funeral." Noah looked down at the gray shirt. "My friend said the same thing," he said. "I couldn't find the other one." "What does the other one look like?" "Blue. Basically the same shirt, but blue." "So you would have looked less funereal if you'd found it?" "Marginally." She held the phone for a moment. Then she set it down on the table between them, at an angle where they could both read it, which Noah understood was a structural decision. She was staying. She typed, "I'm Harper." "Noah," he said. "I know. Marcus told me about you too." "What did he say?" "That you were ready to get back out there." Noah stared at that sentence. Was the phrase, "ready to get back out there," used in quotation marks when he said it? It was very much implied. "He was wrong," Noah said. Harper looked at him steadily. "I know," she typed. "I can tell." That landed somewhere he hadn't expected it to. He picked up his coffee cup, remembered it was probably cold by now, drank it anyway. "Can I ask," he said carefully, "what you were signing when you came in?" She was still for a moment. Then she typed, "I was telling you that you didn't have to sit through something awful just to be polite. That I wouldn't think less of you for leaving. That I'd done this 3 times before, and I already knew how it ended. And I didn't need one more person looking at me like I was a charity case they were being forced to spend an afternoon with." Noah read the message twice. 3 times, he said. 3 times. Marcus set you up 3 times? Different people. Marcus set me up twice. My sister did it once. She meant well. They all mean well. A pause, a new message. That's almost worse. Noah set down the coffee cup. What happened? The 3 times? Harper hesitated. Then, first one stayed 45 minutes and talked about his ex-girlfriend the whole time. Second one was kind, but he kept talking to me like I was a child. Loud and slow. I hear fine with my cochlear implant. I'm deaf, not stupid. Another message. Third one took one look at me and said he had a work emergency. I watched him walk out and get into his car and sit there for 20 minutes on his phone. That's a terrible collection of human beings, Noah said. They're not terrible, they didn't know what to do with me. That's not a great defense of them. No, she typed. I guess it's not. The woman at the next table had stopped looking at them. The man behind the pie case had gone back to whatever he'd been doing before. The cafe had reassembled itself around them, indifferent, and Noah was aware of the strange intimacy of it. Sitting here with a stranger, in the back of a place he'd avoided for 3 years, having the most direct conversation he'd had with another adult since... He didn't want to finish that thought. For what it's worth, he said, Marcus didn't tell me you were perfect. He told me you read books. That was the selling point, apparently. That was the thing that was supposed to get me out of the house. Harper looked up from her phone. Books. He knows I like talking about books. He thought it would work. Did it? Noah thought about it. I think the thing that worked was Mia, he said. She tilted her head. Who's Mia? And this was the moment. Noah felt it. The small, precise pivot, where the conversation changed from 2 people enduring an uncomfortable situation to 2 people actually talking to each other. Something about saying Mia's name out loud made the rest of it easier. My daughter, he said. She's 6. I was standing in the kitchen, trying to figure out how to get out of this, and she walked in and asked if I was having coffee with a girl someone. And I said yes. And she thought about it for about 10 seconds and said, okay, and asked if we could have pancakes first. He paused. She's more functional at 6:30 in the morning than I am at any point in my life. Harper was looking at him differently now. She knew you were nervous. She absolutely knew. She was very gracious about it. She sounds like good people. She is, Noah said. She's the best person I know. Harper typed slowly this time. How long have you been on your own with her? The directness of it should have stung. It didn't. There was something about the way she asked, plainly, without padding it in careful phrases, that felt like respect rather than intrusion. 3 years, he said. Her mom passed away. Cancer. Mia was 3, so she doesn't... She has some memories, but not many. She knows from pictures, from what I tell her. Harper was quiet for a moment. Then, I'm sorry. Thank you. Marcus didn't tell me that either. Marcus, Noah said, has apparently been curating our information quite aggressively. What else didn't he tell you about me? Noah looked at her. The wheelchair, the phone on the table between them, the cochlear implant behind her left ear, visible now that he knew to look for it. He said you'd been through some things, Noah said. He didn't elaborate. Harper looked at the table for a moment. Her hands rested in her lap, still for once after all the typing and the signing. Then she picked the phone back up. 3 years ago, I was in a car accident. I was a passenger. The other driver ran a red light. She paused before continuing. I lost the hearing in both ears. I have about 30% with the implant. I lost the use of my legs. The doctors called it incomplete paralysis, which means some days are better than others, which means nothing because the better days don't look like what they did before. Another pause. I was engaged at the time. His name was Derek. She stopped typing. You don't have to, Noah started. She shook her head slightly and kept going. He was there in the beginning. At the hospital, through the surgeries, through the first months of rehab. He held my hand and said everything you're supposed to say. And then, about 8 months in, he sat next to my hospital bed and told me that he loved me, but he couldn't do it. That it wasn't what he'd signed up for. A long pause. He was very kind about it. That's what I remember most. He was so gentle, like he was doing me a favor. Noah didn't say anything. There wasn't anything to say that wouldn't have sounded hollow. Harper looked up from the phone. Her eyes were dry now, steady. She had the look of someone who had told this story enough times that she'd gotten to the other side of it. Not past the pain, but past the performance of it. So that's the thing Marcus didn't tell you, she typed. Not just the chair. Not just the ears. It's that the last person who was supposed to love me decided he'd rather not. And every time someone sits across from me in a place like this, I wonder how long it'll take them to reach the same conclusion. Noah picked up his coffee cup, found it empty, set it down. I think, he said slowly, that Marcus told me you were incredible because he wanted me to form an impression before I could form a different one. And I think, based on approximately 17 minutes of knowing you, that he was not wrong. Harper stared at him. I also think, Noah continued, that he is absolutely going to hear about the gray shirt comment, and I want you to know that I'll be mentioning your name when I complain. Something happened in Harper's face. Not a full smile, not yet, but the architecture of one. The way a room looks when someone's walked in and turned on a light in the next room over. Not bright yet, but no longer dark. How much do you know about sign language? She typed. I know thank you, Noah said. And I know whatever gesture this is. He made the thumbs up. And I once saw a YouTube video about the alphabet, but I remember about 4 letters. Which 4? A, B, and I think S? And maybe R, though I might be confusing R with something else. Harper looked at him for a moment. Then she held up her hand and made a slow, deliberate gesture. Her index finger extended, moved in a small arc. What does that mean? Noah said. She typed, It means more. He looked at the gesture, looked at her. More coffee? More of whatever this is. Noah sat with that for a second. Then he caught the eye of the woman behind the counter and held up 2 fingers. 2 coffees. Harper set her phone down between them again, that angle that said, I'm staying, and looked at him with those dark, unsparing eyes, and the afternoon light through the window of Hargrove's cafe fell across the table and across both of them. And the cafe went on around them, indifferent and steady, and neither of them moved to leave. Outside, somewhere on the other side of the glass, Saturday continued without them. Mia was probably home watching cartoons. Marcus was probably checking his phone every 10 minutes and trying to look casual about it. The city moved the way cities move, relentless, oblivious, not particularly concerned with 2 people in a back booth learning, very slowly, how to sit in the same room as someone else's grief. But they were still there, both of them, trying. And outside the window, a couple walked by with a dog, a big golden one, The kind that trots like it owns every sidewalk it's ever been on. And Noah watched it for a second, and then he heard himself say, "The dog next door might be named Gerald Jr. I've been trying to establish this for 2 weeks, but the neighbor won't give me a straight answer." Harper blinked. Then she picked up her phone. "Why does it matter?" "Because if his name is Gerald Jr., that means there was a Gerald Sr., and I want to know what happened to Gerald Sr." She looked at him for a long moment. "That," she typed, "is the most specific thing anyone has ever said to me on a first date. Is that good or bad?" She thought about it. "It's the first thing you've said that made me forget for a second that this was supposed to be terrible." Noah looked at her. Then he picked up the fresh coffee the woman had just set down between them, and he said, "It's still pretty terrible." And Harper Ellis, for the first time since she'd walked through the door of Hargrove's Cafe, with tears already forming, laughed. Not a polite laugh, not a social one. The real kind. The kind that surprises you when it comes out, that you weren't expecting, that lands in the room like something you'd lost and given up looking for. Noah heard it and thought, without planning to, there it is. The coffee was terrible. The booth was too narrow. The afternoon light was fading already, the way light fades in early fall. Not slowly, but in stages, like it keeps reconsidering. Neither of them noticed. That laugh changed something in the room. Not dramatically. Not the way things change in movies, where the music swells and the lighting shifts and everyone understands that a turning point has arrived. It was quieter than that. More like the way a door that's been stuck for a long time finally gives, not with a bang, but with that soft, surrendering click. And then it's just open, and you can walk through if you want to. Noah wanted to. He wasn't sure what to do with that wanting, exactly. He hadn't felt it in a long time. But he recognized it, the way you recognize a smell from your childhood. Something your body knew before your brain caught up. Harper was still recovering from the laugh, pressing 2 fingers to her mouth like she was mildly surprised by herself. Then she picked up her phone. "I didn't think I was going to do that today," she typed. "What? Laugh?" "Any of this. I almost canceled this morning." "Why didn't you?" She thought for a moment. "My aide, Rosa, told me I'd already done my hair and it would be a waste." She paused. "Rosa is very practical." "She sounds like Mia," Noah said. "How old did you say Mia is?" "She'll be 7 in October." "And she's already wiser than both of us." "Without question," Noah said. "She told me last week that worrying is just pretending something bad is happening before it actually is. I don't know where she heard that. Definitely not from me." Harper looked at him. "Where do you think she heard it?" Noah turned his coffee cup slowly. "Her mom used to say things like that. Claire had this way of just cutting right to the thing. No wasted words. She'd say one sentence, and I'd stand there thinking about it for 3 days." He paused. "Mia does the same thing. It catches me off guard sometimes." "She sounds like her." "She does," Noah said. "More every year." He hadn't said that out loud before, not to anyone. The words sat in the air between them, and he waited to feel the usual tightening in his chest. The reflex to change the subject, to pull back and find safer ground. But it didn't come. Not the way it usually did. Harper was watching him carefully, not with pity. That was the thing he'd been bracing for, the thing that always made him close up like a fist. She was watching him, the way people watch each other when they recognize something, when they see their own country in a stranger's face. "Can I ask you something?" she typed. "Sure." "When people ask how you're doing, and they mean really ask, not just being polite, what do you say?" Noah considered this. "I say I'm fine."
Are you?
No, he said without hesitating.
What would you say if you were being honest?
He looked at the table. Outside, a bus went by, shaking the window slightly. I'd say I'm functional, he said. I get Mia to school, I go to work, I make dinner most nights. Not great dinners, but food, technically. I show up where I'm supposed to show up. I do the things. He stopped. But there's a difference between doing the things and actually being there. For a long time, I've been doing the things from a little bit of a distance, like watching my own life through glass. Harper had stopped typing. She was just listening. And the worst part, Noah said, and he was aware that he was saying more than he'd intended to, more than he'd said to Marcus, or to his mother-in-law, or to the therapist he'd seen 4 times before deciding he was fine, is that Mia knows. She's 6, and she knows. She doesn't say it because she's 6, and she's protecting me, which is backwards, which is the thing I feel the worst about. My kid is protecting me. He stopped talking. Harper let the silence sit for a moment. Then she typed, "When my fiancé left, my mother asked me if I was angry at him, and I said no. And she said, 'You should be.' And I said, 'I'm not angry. I'm just tired. I'm tired of explaining myself to people. I'm tired of watching them do the math on me, figure out what I cost, decide if I'm worth it.'" She paused. "I think you understand what I mean by that." "I think I do," Noah said. "Not the grief part specifically, but the disappearing into the corner of your own life part. Making yourself small so people don't have to figure out what to do with you." Noah looked at her. "Yes," he said. "That's exactly it. It's exhausting." "It is. And it doesn't even work," she typed. "You make yourself small, and they still don't know what to do with you. So you've lost both things. You're small and uncomfortable." Noah let out a breath that was almost a laugh. "That is the most accurate description of my last 3 years that I have ever heard." Harper smiled. A real one this time, small and wry, the kind that lived mostly in the eyes. Then she typed, "Tell me about Claire. If you want to, you don't have to." He'd never been asked that so plainly before. People asked how he was doing. People asked about Mia, about work, about whether he'd thought about getting back out there. That phrase again. Like grief was a swimming pool, and someone was standing at the edge of it, telling him the water was fine. But no one asked him to tell them about Claire. Maybe because they were afraid of the answer. Maybe because they'd known her too, and it hurt them also. Maybe because talking about a dead person felt like opening a door that would be hard to close again. "She was a teacher," Noah said. 3rd grade. She used to come home and tell me about her kids, not by their names, because she was careful about privacy. But she had these little nicknames for them. There was one she called the philosopher, because this kid would ask a question every single day that she couldn't answer. What happens when you die? Why is the sky blue when space is black? Why do we have to sleep? He paused. She'd come home and drop her bag at the door and say, "The philosopher got me again." And we'd stand in the kitchen and try to figure it out together. Harper's hands were still in her lap. She was watching his face. She was funny, Noah continued. Not joke funny. Observationally funny. She'd noticed the thing everyone else was missing and just name it. And you'd think, how did I not see that? How did I walk past that every day? He stopped again. She noticed everything. That was both the best and the most complicated thing about being married to her. There was nowhere to hide. How long were you married? 4 years. We'd been together 2 years before that, so 6 years total. He did the math in his head, which he'd done 1,000 times before, the pointless arithmetic of a life that ended too soon. We got her diagnosis 8 months before she died. Ovarian cancer, stage 3. The doctors they weren't pessimistic. They gave us hope. Cautious hope. The kind that's harder than no hope, because you invest in it. He looked at the table. Mia was 2 when they found it, 2.5 when things got bad, 3 when... He stopped. "You don't have to finish that sentence," Harper typed. "I know," Noah said. "I've noticed I can get almost to the end of it, and then my mouth just stops, like a car that runs out of gas. That's not a bad thing." "Maybe not." He looked up. "I'm sorry. I don't usually..." "Don't apologize. I just don't usually do this. Talk about her. Not this way." "Why not?" He thought about it. "Because the people who knew her, I don't want to make their grief worse. And the people who didn't, it feels like describing a place they've never been. You can't really get them there. You can say the words, but the words aren't..." He searched. "They're not the thing itself." Harper had been listening with a stillness that was different from ordinary quiet. Active, focused, the kind of listening that costs something. She picked up her phone. "I know what you mean," she typed. "When people ask me to describe what it was like before my accident, I never know what to say. Not because I don't remember, because the language for it doesn't exist. How do you describe a self you no longer have access to? It's not grief exactly. It's more like you can see the country through the fence, but you can't get in." She stopped, then added, "And eventually you stop standing at the fence." "Because it hurts less?" "Because you find a different country. Or you try to. You don't always succeed." Noah nodded slowly. "Are you succeeding?" She looked at him for a long moment. "Some days," she typed. "Today is unusual." Good unusual or bad unusual? Still deciding. She tilted her head slightly. "You?" "Same," Noah said. The cafe had gotten louder around them without his noticing. A family with 2 small kids had taken the booth nearest the front. A teenage girl was working on what looked like homework 3 tables over. The man behind the pie case had put on a low country music radio station, the kind that Noah associated with his own father, with Sunday drives to nowhere specific. Neither of them had moved in over an hour. "Can I ask you something now?" Noah said. "Fair." "The signing. You were wearing, what, the implant when you came in. Do you prefer signing or speaking?" Harper considered this. "Both, depending. Speaking is harder in noisy places. The implant helps, but it's not the same as natural hearing. There's always interference, always something filtering. Signing is cleaner for me, but it requires someone who knows it on the other end, which..." She glanced at him pointedly. "Which I do not." "Which you do not. So this works." She held up the phone. "Would you teach me?" Noah said. She lowered the phone slightly, looked at him. "Teach you sign language?" "Not all of it, but more than 4 letters. More than thank you." He paused. "I'd like to be able to say more than thank you." Harper looked at him for a moment that stretched out a little longer than a moment. Then she set the phone down on the table and held up her right hand, index finger extended, and moved it in that small, deliberate arc again, the gesture she'd shown him before. "More," he remembered. "It means more." He tried it. His hand was stiff, self-conscious, the way hands get when they're not sure what they're doing. The gesture came out roughly shaped, but recognizable. Harper watched. Then she held up her hand and showed him another one, 2 fingers to her lips, moving outward. "What's that?" he said. She typed, "Thank you. You already knew this one, but your version is..." She paused. "Let's say there's room for improvement." "Show me again." She did, slower this time. He matched her, focusing on the angle of his fingers, the direction of the motion. "Better. Better," she typed, as if reading his thought. "I'm sorry," he said. She showed him. A fist. Slow circle over the chest, over the heart. He did it. "Good," she typed. He thought for a moment. "Terrible blind date?" Harper looked up from the phone, and the corner of her mouth moved again, that half-lit, almost smile. She thought about it, then signed something more elaborate. Several gestures in sequence, eyebrows raised, expression exaggerated. "What was that?" Noah said. "That's more like catastrophic meeting of 2 unfortunate people." "It's not one phrase exactly. It's more of an editorial comment. In sign language." Sign language is very expressive. The face does a lot of the work. She demonstrated the same gesture, but with a look of such theatrical suffering that Noah laughed outright. "Is that actually a word, or did you just make that up?" "ASL has a lot of flexibility," she typed primly. "That's not an answer." "No, it is not." He laughed again. She watched him laugh. Watched it the way you watch something you haven't seen in a while. Something you'd started to think maybe didn't exist anymore. The afternoon had moved. The light through the window was lower now, golden and long. The kind of light that belongs specifically to late September, to the part of the year that knows it's ending and has decided to be beautiful about it. Noah noticed it for the first time in a while. Really noticed it. The way he'd stopped noticing things that didn't require his immediate attention. "My wife would have liked you," he said. It came out before he'd decided to say it. Harper looked up. "I mean that as a compliment," he added. She liked people who said the real thing. She had no patience for the polite version of things. "Then she and I would have gotten along," Harper typed. "I used to have more patience for the polite version. Before." "Before the accident?" "Before Derek left." She was quiet for a moment, her hands still. "The accident, I found a way to accept it. It was terrible and it changed everything, but it happened to my body. I could still think. I could still work. I could still read and make things and argue with Rosa about whether she was being overly cautious about the ramp at my apartment building." She paused. "Derek leaving happened to something else. Something I didn't have a good physical therapy plan for." "Your sense of being worth staying for," Noah said quietly. Harper looked at him. "Yes," she typed. "Exactly that." "I know that one differently," Noah said. "But I know it. After Claire died, the grief wasn't the hardest part. The hardest part was, she chose me. She chose me out of everyone, and she's gone. And sometimes I think, what does that mean now? What do I do with a life that was built around someone who isn't here anymore? Who am I when the person who decided I was worth it is..." He stopped. Harper typed slowly. "I think the difference between you and Derek is that you didn't leave." Noah looked at her. "She got sick. You stayed. That's not nothing, Noah. That's actually the whole thing." He looked at the table. He felt the sting behind his eyes that he was very practiced at not allowing. He breathed through it. "Thank you," he said. And then, slowly, he raised his hand and made the gesture she'd shown him. 2 fingers to his lips, moving outward. Harper watched his hand. Then she did something he didn't expect. She reached across the table, not far, just to the edge of it, and she put her hand near his. Not on it, not quite touching, just near. and left it there. Noah looked at her hand. He looked at her face. She was looking somewhere past his shoulder, with a particular expression of someone who has done something they're not entirely sure about, and is choosing not to second-guess it. He turned his hand over slowly, palm up, an offering, not a demand. And after a moment, her fingers shifted to rest lightly in his palm, barely any weight at all. And they sat like that in the back booth of Hargrove's Cafe, in the long golden light of late September. Two people who had come in expecting the worst and were finding something else entirely. "I have to be home by 6, Noah said. "I know," Harper typed with her free hand. "Rosa picks me up at 5:30. She's already texted me twice to make sure I'm okay." "What did you tell her?" "I told her I was fine." "Are you?" A pause. "I'm functional," she typed, with a slight emphasis that quoted his word back at him. He looked at her. "That's the nicest thing anyone's called me all year." She shook her head slightly, and the almost smile became something more committed. Not quite a full smile, but the honest version of one, the kind that doesn't perform happiness, but can't quite hide that it's present. "Marcus is going to be insufferable about this," she typed. "He absolutely is," Noah agreed. "I'm going to pretend he was wrong for as long as possible, just on principle." Was he? Noah considered the question seriously. The afternoon, the coffee, the terrible beginning, and the slow, strange, accidental middle. "No," he said, "but I'm not going to tell him that." "He'll know," Harper typed. "People always know." "He will," Noah admitted. "He'll call me tomorrow morning before 8, and I'll say it was fine, and he'll say, 'Just fine?' with that specific tone he has, and I'll say yes, and he'll say, 'Okay,' and neither of us will say anything else, and he'll know exactly." "My sister will do the same thing," Harper said. "She's going to ask me 3 times if I'm sure I'm okay, and each time will mean something slightly different. First time is politeness. Second time is actually asking. Third time is, I'm worried and I don't know how to say it." She paused. "I'll tell her I had a good afternoon." "Did you?" Harper looked at him. The light was almost gone from the window now, replaced by the soft, indistinct gray of early evening. Someone had switched on the overhead lights in the cafe without Noah noticing, and the place had that particular quality of indoor warmth that happens after the sun goes down. Closed in and safe, slightly separate from whatever was happening outside. "I came in here," she typed slowly, ready to survive another hour. Counting the exits, planning what I'd say to Rosa on the way home, to make it sound less bleak than I expected it to be. She looked at the screen for a moment. "I didn't expect any of this." "Me neither," Noah said. "What did you expect?" He thought about it honestly. "I expected to feel guilty," he said, "about being here at all. Like, going on a date meant acknowledging that Claire wasn't coming back. And I already know that. I know that every single day. But somehow sitting across from someone new would make it more real. More final." He paused. "I expected to feel like I was doing something wrong." "Do you?" He looked at Harper, at her dark eyes and the quiet steadiness in them, and the phone between them that had carried more honesty in 2 hours than most conversations managed in years. "No," he said. "I feel like I had coffee with someone who understood something important about loss. And I didn't know I needed that." Harper looked at him for a long moment without typing anything. Then she picked up the phone. "Can I ask you something that might be strange?" "Probably, yes." "Would you want to do this again? Not a date necessarily, just this. Coffee. Talking. Being two people who understand loss without having to explain it first." Noah looked at her. "Harper," he said, "I will absolutely do this again." She looked at him steadily for a moment. Then she typed, "Next Saturday?" "Next Saturday," he said. "Bring Mia," she typed. "If that's okay. I'd like to meet the person who has the pancake philosophy figured out." Noah felt something shift in his chest. Not painfully, the way things usually shifted. More like weight redistributing. Like something that had been pressed too hard against one side, finally finding a little room to breathe. "She's going to ask you approximately 40 questions," he said. "About everything. She has no filter and no concept of privacy." "I can handle 40 questions." "She might ask about the wheelchair." "Good," Harper typed. "I'd rather answer a real question than watch an adult pretend it isn't there." Noah nodded. "Fair point." Outside, a car pulled up to the curb. A dark sedan. And Noah watched as a woman in her 50s got out. Not hurrying, with the practiced calm of someone who had learned that patience was more efficient than urgency. She looked through the cafe window, found Harper, and gave a small nod. "Rosa." Harper saw it too. She typed, "That's my cue." "I know." She put her phone in her bag and turned to face the table, preparing to maneuver the chair back. Noah stood, and then paused, because he wasn't sure what the right thing to do was, whether to help or to stay still, whether the gesture would land as consideration or as condescension. Harper looked up at him, reading the hesitation with what seemed like long familiarity. She made a gesture, hand flat, palm down, a small, easy motion. "I've got it." He nodded. He stepped back just far enough to give her room. She moved the chair back from the table with one smooth, practiced rotation and turned toward the door. At the edge of the booth, she stopped and looked back at him. She raised her hand and made the gesture. Index finger, small arc. "More." Noah made it back. "More." Rosa held the door. Harper wheeled through it. Noah stood in the back of Hargrove's cafe in the gray shirt that looked like a funeral, empty coffee cups on the table between them. And he watched her go. Then he picked up his phone and texted Marcus. "Fine," he typed. "You were right. Don't make it weird." He stared at it for a second, then added, "The shirt comment was hers, by the way, not mine." He paid the check, left more tip than was strictly necessary, and walked out of the cafe into the September evening. The air had the particular sharp sweetness of fall settling in, leaves just beginning to think about turning, the sky still holding a stripe of orange above the rooftops. He stood on the sidewalk for a moment. Then he called Mia. She picked up on the second ring. "Dad," she said with the gravity of someone receiving an important report. "How was it?" "It was fine," Noah said. A pause. He could picture her face exactly. The slight skeptical tilt of her chin, the clear green eyes narrowing. "Fine like boring fine," Mia said carefully. "Or fine like actually fine." Noah looked up at the stripe of orange sky above the rooftops. "Actually fine," he said. Another pause, longer this time. "Okay," Mia said. Then, "I saved you a pancake." "You saved me a pancake from this morning?" "I put it in the fridge. Rosa said you can heat it up. It's a little sad now, but it still tastes the same." Noah started walking. "I'll eat it when I get home," he said. "It has too much syrup," Mia said. "The way we like it." "The way we like it," Noah agreed. He walked home through the September evening with the sharp, sweet air and the orange sky, and he thought about Harper's hands and her phone and the word more. And he thought about Mia saving a pancake. And he thought about Claire saying one sentence that made him think for 3 days. And for the first time in a long time, not the last time, not cleanly, not without the familiar weight pressing somewhere underneath. But for the first time in a long time, he was not watching his life through glass. He was in it. Just barely. Just enough. But in it. Marcus called Sunday morning at 7:52. Noah was already awake, standing at the kitchen window with his coffee, watching the neighbor's dog, Gerald, or possibly Gerald Jr., investigate the base of the oak tree with the intensity of a detective who had received a credible tip. "I'm not going to say I told you so," Marcus said when Noah picked up. "You literally just implied it in the act of saying you weren't going to say it." "How was she?" Noah took a sip of coffee. "She said my shirt looked like a funeral." A pause. Then Marcus let out a sound that was somewhere between a laugh and a vindicated exhale. "She's right, though. I've been told." "So, tell me." "I told you in the text. It was fine." Noah. "Marcus, I've known you for 22 years. Fine like boring fine, or—" "Mia already asked me that exact question," Noah said. "Verbatim. You two have been talking." "She texted me last night asking how it went." Noah turned away from the window. "She's 6. She has your old phone, and she knows how to use it, and she loves you, and she was worried. Don't make it weird." Noah set his coffee down. He thought about the drive home last night, the stripe of orange sky, the way the word "more" had sat in his chest the whole walk back, like a small, warm thing he didn't want to set down. "It was good, Marcus," he said. "It was actually good." The silence on the other end lasted just long enough that Noah knew Marcus was doing everything in his power not to gloat. "She's something else, isn't she?" Marcus said finally, not a question. "She is. I knew you'd— Don't. I'm warning you." "I'm just saying, Marcus, I am hanging up." "Are you seeing her again?" Noah looked at the ceiling. "Next Saturday." Another pause, then, very quietly, in the voice of a man who understood when to stop pushing. "Good. That's really good, man. Don't make it weird," Noah said again. "I won't." He did, slightly, by texting a thumbs-up emoji 6 consecutive times. But Noah let it go. The week moved the way weeks move when there's something at the end of them to look forward to. Faster in the mornings, slower in the evenings, with a particular quality of suspense that Noah hadn't felt since before Claire got sick. It made him uneasy, that feeling. Not because it was bad, because he wasn't sure he trusted it. 3 years of learning not to want things too much had left him cautious about wanting things at all. He texted Harper on Tuesday, just to confirm Saturday. She texted back in under a minute. "Still Saturday. Rosa already knows. She'll pretend she isn't happy about it, but she made me a new blouse." He laughed at his phone like a person who had not done that alone in his kitchen in longer than he could remember. "Bring the kid," Harper added. "I've been thinking about the pancake philosophy." He texted back. "She's been warned you might at her." "I'm planning to." "She'll love it. She absolutely will," he typed, and put the phone down before he could write anything else. He picked it back up and added, "Thank you for Saturday." 3 dots appeared, then disappeared, then appeared again. Finally, "Thank you for not leaving." He put the phone in his pocket and stood in his kitchen in the Tuesday evening quiet, and felt something happening in his chest that he couldn't fully name yet, and wasn't going to try. Saturday came with the particular stubborn brightness of early October, the kind of day that announces itself. Mia was up before Noah, dressed by the time he made it to the kitchen, not in her pajamas, but in the small red dress she saved for occasions she decided were important. He looked at her standing at the kitchen table, eating cereal with the focused intensity of someone fueling up for a mission, and felt a wave of something so large and quiet, it took his breath. "You're wearing the red dress," he said. "It's polite," she said, without looking up. "Harper's not going to care what you're wearing." Mia finally looked at him. "I care," she said, with a dignity that foreclosed further discussion. They took the long way to Hargrove's, not because it was better, but because Mia wanted to walk past the house with the big porch and the wind chimes, which she had decided was the best house on the block for reasons she had never fully articulated. She walked with her hand in Noah's and swung it periodically, in a way she would probably stop doing in another year or two when she decided it wasn't cool. And Noah was aware of this in the way he was always aware now of the things that were temporary, cataloging them carefully, the way you do when you've learned that nothing lasts, and that learning this is not a reason to hold on tighter, but to pay better attention. He held her hand the whole way. Harper was already there when they arrived. She was at the same booth in the back, or near it, her chair at the end of the table so she could face the door. She had the blouse on that Rosa had made, dark green this time, and her hair was down, and she was reading something on her phone when they came in. She looked up when the bell above the door rang. Mia saw her at the same moment Harper saw them. Mia stopped walking. Noah watched his daughter look at Harper, the chair, the phone, all of it, with 6-year-old directness, the kind of gaze that adults spend years learning to soften. He felt a flicker of parental anxiety, the instinct to intercept, to frame, to make it easier. He didn't, because Mia squared her small shoulders, walked across the cafe with the composure of someone who had decided something, stopped in front of Harper's table, and said, "Hi, I'm Mia. My dad says you're really good at sign language." Harper looked at her. Then she looked at Noah, who gave her the honest expression of a man who had no idea what was going to happen next. Harper picked up her phone and typed. She turned it so Mia could see it. "Hi, Mia. I'm Harper. Your dad says you have the pancake philosophy figured out." Mia read it. She nodded seriously. "Too much syrup is always the right amount," she said. "That's the whole philosophy." Harper looked at her for a moment. Then she put the phone down and held up her hands and signed something slowly, deliberately, making it clear she was teaching as she went. Mia watched, transfixed. "What did you say?" she asked. Harper typed, "I said, I completely agree." Mia turned to Noah with an expression of pure triumph. "Dad, she agrees with me." "I heard," Noah said. "Can she teach me that? The things she did with her hands?" Noah slid into the seat across from Harper. "You can ask her yourself." Mia turned back to Harper with the confidence of someone who had just been told the answer was yes before she'd asked the question. "Can you teach me?" she said. Harper smiled. The real one. The one that started in her eyes first, and held up her hands. The lesson lasted 20 minutes and covered approximately 8 signs, all of which Mia executed with a determination that reminded Noah so sharply of Claire that he had to look at his coffee for a moment. More. "Thank you, friend." "Hello. I understand." "Please." "Beautiful." "You're funny." She got most of them right on the second or third try, and each time Harper confirmed it with a nod and an approving expression. Mia's satisfaction was so complete and unperformed that both adults watched her without talking, just watching, in the particular way that children make adults feel guilty for having forgotten what full investment looks like. At some point, Mia declared that she was hungry, and Noah ordered her a grilled cheese, and she ate it with the focused efficiency of someone with places to be, and then asked Harper if she could go look at the pie case in the front. And Harper typed, "Yes, go." And Mia went. And just like that, it was the two of them again. "She's extraordinary," Harper typed. "She really is," Noah said. "She doesn't do the thing." "What thing?" "The thing where she figures out how to treat me. She just treated me. From the first second." Harper paused. "Most adults take 10 minutes to calibrate. She took 10 seconds. "She spent those 10 seconds deciding which dress to wear," Noah said. She didn't have any energy left for calibrating. Harper looked at him. She saved that for you. She's been saving things for me for 3 years, he said quietly. I'm just now starting to deserve it. It came out more honest than he'd planned. He looked at the table for a second, then back up. Harper was watching him with that steady expression, not pitying, just present. What happened this week? She typed. Between Saturday and now. What do you mean? You seem different. Something shifted. Noah thought about it. I've been thinking about what you said, that I'd been doing the things from a distance, from behind glass. He paused. I've been thinking about how long that's been true. How long? Longer than 3 years, he said. I think... He stopped. Started again. I think when Claire got sick, I had to be the one who held it together. I was the steady one, the functional one. I went to every appointment and managed all the logistics, and I was the one who talked to the doctors in that careful, measured way, because she needed that from me. And I think at some point I got stuck in that version of myself, the version that doesn't react, that manages. He looked at his hands. And after she was gone, I just kept being that person, because it was the only way I knew how to still be standing. Harper had stopped typing. She was listening with her whole body. But it means that for 3 years I haven't actually felt much, Noah said. I've processed, I've coped, I've been very, very functionally present. He looked up at her. Mia needs more than functionally present. She needs a father who's actually in the room with her. And last Sunday, walking home, I thought, when was the last time I was actually in a room? Saturday, Harper typed. You were in the room Saturday. I know, he said. I noticed. She looked at him. Then she typed slowly. I want to tell you something, and I need you to hear it as something honest, not something kind. Okay? What you just described, the managed grief, the functional distance, that is not weakness. That is what love does to people when it runs out of the person to go to. It doesn't disappear. It has nowhere to be. So you build walls around it to contain it, and you call the walls coping, and you live inside them, because the alternative is being out in the open, with something that has no direction anymore. She paused. I did the same thing after Derek, after the accident. I built very efficient walls, and I called them independence, and I was very proud of them. Are they still there? She considered this. Some of them, the good ones, the ones that protect the things that are worth protecting. She paused again. But I've been taking down some of the others, the ones I built just to avoid being seen. Since Saturday? Since Saturday, she confirmed. He looked at her for a long moment. Outside of the pie case, he could see Mia having a very serious conversation with the woman behind the counter, presumably about the relative merits of the 4 rotating varieties. Can I ask you about Derek? He said. Harper didn't flinch. She nodded once. You said he left 8 months after the accident. You said he was kind about it. Noah held her gaze. Do you think he was a coward? Or do you think he was just honest about his limits? It was a harder question than it sounded. Harper looked at the table for a moment, something moving behind her eyes. I used to think one thing and then the other on alternating days, she typed. For the first year, I was just destroyed. I didn't have the bandwidth to decide if he was a coward. I was too busy trying to survive. She paused. Second year, I decided he was a coward. It felt better. Anger is cleaner than grief, easier to hold. And now? Now, she typed and stopped. Started again. Now I think he was a man who discovered a limit he didn't know he had. And he left instead of staying and making both of us suffer through his not being able to rise to it. And I think that was probably the most honest thing he did in the whole 8 months. A pause. But I also think honesty doesn't preclude cowardice. You can be both. You can, Noah agreed. What I struggle with is not the leaving. It's the 8 months before it. She typed this slowly, like she was working through it in real time. He stayed. He held my hand. He said the things. And I believed him. I built my recovery around the belief that he was going to be there at the end of it. And when he wasn't, the thing that broke wasn't just the relationship. It was my sense of my own judgment. My ability to trust what I thought I knew about people. Noah was very still. I keep thinking, if I was wrong about Derek, after 6 years together, after everything, how do I know what I know about anyone? She looked up at him. How do you trust your own reading of a person again after that? I don't know, Noah said honestly. I think you do it slowly, badly. You test it in small ways, and it either holds or it doesn't. And sometimes you're wrong again, and you recalibrate. He paused. I haven't been testing it at all. I've just opted out of having to know until Saturday. Until Saturday. The word landed between them with a weight that neither of them rushed to move. Mia came back from the pie case holding a piece of cherry on a plate, which she set on the table with the ceremony of someone presenting evidence. The lady said this was the best one, she said. I told her I'd report back. She sat down and took a bite, considered it gravely. Harper and Noah watched her. It's good, Mia decided. It's not the best pie I've ever had. She looked at Harper. Have you ever had really good pie? Harper picked up her phone, typed. My grandmother made apple pie from scratch every Thanksgiving. It was probably the best thing I've ever eaten. Mia read this. Is she still alive? Could we get the recipe? Noah put his hand briefly over his eyes. But Harper was already typing, and when Mia read the response, her face lit up. She wrote it down for me before she died. I have it somewhere in a box. Maybe I could find it. Dad, Mia said, turning to Noah with the energy of someone who had just solved a problem he didn't know existed. Harper has a pie recipe. I gathered that, Noah said. We should make it. Mia, not today, Mia said, very reasonably, but sometime. She looked at Harper with that direct, uncomplicated gaze. Harper looked back at her. Something passed between them that Noah couldn't fully read. Some recognition between two people who were both, in their different ways, very used to managing things on their own. Then Mia picked up her fork again and said, with her mouth slightly full of cherry pie, Harper, do you get tired of people being weird about the chair? Mia, Noah started. Harper shook her head at him slightly, let her, and typed. Yes, she wrote. Extremely. That's what I thought, Mia said. I was going to ask you about it, but then I thought it was probably rude. But then I thought it was maybe ruder to pretend not to notice it. So I decided to just ask if it was annoying, and then we'd know where we stood. Harper stared at her. Then she typed, That is the most sophisticated approach to that question that anyone has ever taken with me. Mia nodded, as if this confirmed what she'd suspected. Dad taught me that if you're not sure whether something is rude, you can ask about the rudeness instead of doing the rude thing. Noah looked at Harper. I don't remember teaching her that. You said it once when you were on the phone with Grandma, Mia said. You said, the polite thing and the honest thing aren't always the same thing, and usually honest is better. I wrote it down. You wrote it down. I keep a list. She said this with complete composure, as if this were obvious. Harper was looking at Mia with an expression Noah hadn't seen on her face before. Something open and unguarded. Something that had bypassed whatever she'd carefully constructed to present to the world. She typed slowly. "Your father is right, and so are you." "About the chair," Mia said, with the focus of someone who had an agenda and intended to see it through. "Is there anything you can't do? Like, that you used to do and can't anymore?" Noah watched Harper's face carefully, but Harper didn't hesitate. "I used to run," she typed. "I ran half marathons. I liked the early morning ones, before the city woke up. Just me and the sound of my own breathing." Mia considered this. "Do you miss it?" "Every day," Harper typed. "I'm sorry," Mia said. Simple, direct, no performance. "Thank you," Harper typed. Then she held up her hand and made the gesture, 2 fingers to the lips, moving outward. She pointed to Mia. Mia made it back, carefully, the way she'd practiced earlier. "Good," Harper typed. They sat like that for a moment. Mia working on her cherry pie, Harper watching her, Noah watching both of them. The cafe went on around them. Someone's phone played a ringtone too loudly. The country radio station was still running in the background. The afternoon light moved. "I want to ask you something," Harper typed suddenly, turning the phone toward Noah. "And it might be hard." "Okay," he said. "Tell me what happened. Not the facts, what it was like. The day Claire died. You don't have to, but you've been carrying the managed version for 3 years, and I wonder what happens if you put it down." The cafe noise continued around them. Mia was eating her pie, not looking at him, in the particular way children have of being simultaneously present and tactfully absent. Noah looked at his coffee. "It was a Tuesday," he said. "Mia was at my mother-in-law's. We knew. We'd known for a few weeks that we were running out of time. But knowing and knowing are different things. There's the thing you understand with your brain, and the thing you haven't let yourself feel yet." He paused. It was quiet. That's what I remember most. The hospice nurse had left about an hour before. It was just us. And Claire she'd been in and out for a few days, not really present for long stretches. But that afternoon she was there. She was herself. He stopped. Harper waited. She looked at me and she said, "You're going to be a good dad." Present tense. Not had been, going to be, like it was still ahead of me, like she was trusting me with it. His voice was steady, but it was costing him. And I said, "I'm not ready." Because I wasn't. I wasn't ready at all. And she said, "That's okay. Neither was I." He heard Mia set her fork down. She didn't say anything. She put her small hand on his forearm and left it there. "She died about 3 hours later," Noah said. It was still Tuesday. It was still quiet. And I sat there for a while before I called anyone, because I knew that the minute I picked up the phone, the rest of my life started. And I wasn't ready for that either. He looked at Harper. She had her hands in her lap. Her eyes were wet, but she wasn't crying. She was looking at him the way you look at someone when you want them to know, without any language available that's large enough for the job, that you see them, that you're here. "She was right," Harper typed slowly. "You are a good dad." He nodded once. Didn't trust his voice for a second. "You know what the worst part is?" he said when he could. "I don't talk about that day. Ever. I've never told anyone what she said. Not Marcus, not her mother, not the therapist I saw for about 10 minutes. He looked at Harper. "I don't know why I just told you." "I do," Harper typed. "Why?" She thought for a moment. Because I didn't ask you to be okay. I just asked you to tell me. She paused. There's a difference. He sat with that. Mia, who had been quiet for longer than she usually managed, said softly, Dad, Mom said that to you? Yeah, Bug, Noah said. She did. Mia thought about this with tremendous seriousness. Then she said, I think she was right. Yeah? Noah said. I'm here, Mia said, with the absolute simplicity of a child who is offering the most complete evidence she has. I'm okay. So she was right. Noah had to look at the window again for a moment. Harper watched them both. Then she typed and turned the phone so they could both read it. I was engaged to someone who left when things got hard. And for 3 years I told myself that the accident was what broke my life. She paused. But sitting here, I think maybe the accident just showed me what was already true. Derek leaving wasn't the wound. It was the proof that I'd built something that couldn't hold weight. She looked up at Noah. What you and Claire had, that held weight. All the way through. And it still does, because she's here. She gestured at Mia. And because you're still carrying what she gave you, even when the carrying is hard. Noah looked at Harper, at the steadiness in her face, the earned quality of it, not the steadiness of someone who had never been broken, but the steadiness of someone who had been broken all the way down and had built something new in the space it left. Can I ask you something? He said. Yes. When you came into this cafe 2 Saturdays ago, before you saw me, what were you actually hoping for? She looked at him for a long time. Nothing, she typed finally. I had stopped hoping for anything from situations like this. I was going to endure it. A pause. That's a terrible way to live. It is, Noah said. I've been doing the same thing. I know. She looked at him. We're both very good at surviving. Yeah. Maybe we could try something else. He looked at her. Like what? She held his gaze without flinching. Like not just surviving. The words sat in the air between them, in the afternoon of that second Saturday, at the same table in the back of Hargrove's Cafe, where 2 people had come to endure an hour and had somehow stayed for 3. Mia had given up the last bit of cherry pie to the cause, and was now watching them both with the expression of someone who has been waiting, with great patience, for the adults to catch up. I'd like that, Noah said. Harper picked up her phone. She typed one word, held it up so both of them could see it. More. And Mia, who had learned the sign an hour ago, raised her hand and made it back without being asked. More. Noah looked at them both. He felt the weight in his chest that had been there for 3 years. Not lift exactly, not disappear, but shift. The way stones shift at the bottom of a river, slowly rearranged by something persistent and patient and not in any hurry at all. He raised his hand. More. The weeks that followed moved differently than any weeks had moved in a long time for either of them. Not faster exactly. More inhabited. The way a house feels different when all the rooms are being used instead of just a few. Noah noticed it in small ways first. He started making real dinners instead of the technically food variety. Not elaborate things, but actual meals. The kind that required more than one pan and some forethought. He cooked with Mia standing on her step stool beside him. Both of them doing the slightly chaotic chopping and stirring that resulted in dinners that were imperfect and warm, and eaten at the table with the TV off. He started leaving the TV off more generally. He hadn't noticed how much background noise he'd been running in the house until he stopped running it. And then the quiet that was left wasn't empty the way it used to be. It was just quiet. He texted Harper most days. Not long messages. Sometimes just things he noticed. The Gerald Jr. situation had developed a new chapter when the neighbor had finally admitted, slightly defensively, that the dog's full name was Gerald Fitzgerald, which raised more questions than it answered. Sometimes just a word, a sign he'd been practicing, checking if he had it right. She'd respond with a correction or a confirmation, and occasionally with an editorial comment that made him laugh at his phone, alone in his kitchen, like a person who had recently remembered that laughter was something he did. Harper noticed it differently. She started working longer hours. Not the grinding, avoidant kind of long hours she'd been keeping for 2 years, where she sat at her design desk because there was nothing else to go to. The kind of hours that came from being interested again, from having things to make that felt connected to something outside the making. She took on a new client, a small nonprofit that ran after-school art programs for kids in underfunded districts. She'd passed on 3 similar projects in the past year because the subject matter, children, creativity, what kids could become, had landed somewhere tender and she hadn't been ready for it. She took this one. She didn't tell Rosa why. She didn't need to. Rosa already knew. She also started leaving the apartment more than was strictly necessary for errands and medical appointments. This was a bigger shift than it might have sounded. After the accident, she'd gotten very efficient about the outside world, precise, strategic, minimizing exposure to the accumulated friction of navigating spaces not built for her. She went where she needed to go and came home. She'd called it practicality. Rosa had called it something else once, and Harper had given her a look that closed the subject, and Rosa had not brought it up again for 18 months. Now she went to the bookstore on Wednesday afternoons just to go. She went to the farmer's market on Saturdays before meeting Noah. She sat outside the coffee shop 2 blocks from her apartment and worked on her laptop, and did not calculate, as she usually did, how many people were looking at her. Some were. She knew they were. She didn't calculate it. The 3rd Saturday they met at Hargrove's. Noah brought a small notebook. Harper looked at it when he set it on the table. "I've been practicing," he said. He opened it. Inside, in his slightly cramped handwriting, was a list of signs, the word, and next to each one a small rough drawing of the hand shape, with arrows indicating direction. The drawings were not good. They had the quality of a person who knew what he meant and accepted that the execution was going to be approximate. Harper looked through the notebook. She looked up at him. "You drew these yourself?" she typed. "There's a guy on YouTube," Noah said. "He explains it well. The drawings are mine. I know they're terrible." "They're not terrible. They're very—" She paused, considering. "Earnest. That is a kind word for what they are." She flipped another page. He'd written small notes next to some of the signs. Context, reminders, things he'd figured out about when to use them. She read one. "Use this one when you mean it, not just to fill space." The note was next to the sign for "I understand." She looked up at him. "You said that one does a lot of work," he said. "That people use it too fast, before they actually do." "I said that?" "Third sentence you ever typed to me, more or less." She looked back at the notebook. She was quiet for a moment, the kind of quiet that was full, not empty. "Can I keep this?" she typed. He blinked. It's a very rough thing. I was just using it to practice." "I know what it is." She looked at him. "Can I keep it?" "Yeah," he said. "Of course." She set it in her bag, with a carefulness that he noticed and didn't mention. Then she picked up her phone again. "Show me what you've got." He went through them, not perfectly, but better than 4 letters. He got through 12 before she corrected him, and the correction was a minor one, a directional thing. the arc of his wrist going slightly wrong. She showed him the right version twice. He matched her. She gave him the small nod he'd come to recognize as, yes, that's it. "How long until I'm actually useful?" he said. She thought about it. Useful is relative. Functional, maybe 8 months if you keep practicing. Fluent, she considered. Years. "I have time," he said. She looked at him. "Do you mean that?" He held her gaze steadily. "I have time, Harper." She looked at the table. Something moved in her face. Not sadness exactly. More the look of someone who has been waiting a long time to hear something said plainly, without qualification, without the careful soft pedaling that passes for kindness, but functions more like distance. "Noah," she typed. "I need to tell you something." "Okay." "I'm scared." He didn't rush past it. He didn't reassure her immediately. He just stayed with it for a second, the way she had taught him, by example, to stay with things. "Of what specifically?" he said. She took a breath. "Of doing this again. Not this exactly. Us specifically. Whatever this is becoming." She paused. "I know what I lost last time. I know what it cost. And some part of me, the part that built all those efficient walls, keeps saying, 'You know how this ends. You know what people do when it gets hard. You know what you cost people.'" She stopped. "And that part is very loud." Noah was very still. "I'm going to say something," he said, "and I need you to hear it the same way you asked me to hear things. Not as something kind, as something true." She looked at him. "What Derek did was about Derek," Noah said. "Not about you. Not about what you cost. I know you know that. I also know that knowing it in your brain and knowing it in the place where it actually lives are different things. And I'm not going to stand here and tell you that part of you is wrong for being scared." He paused. "But I need you to understand that I am not a man who leaves when things get hard. I stayed with Claire all the way through the hardest thing I have ever done. I am still here, 3 years later, still doing the things because I said I would. That's not me asking for credit. That's me telling you who I am." Harper was looking at him with the full force of those dark eyes and that carefully constructed stillness. "I'm scared too," he said. "I want you to know that. I'm scared that I'm going to be in this and not be fully in it. That I'm going to be behind the glass again without knowing. That I'll hurt you not by leaving, but by not being present enough to stay." He looked at her. "That's my version of scared." She held his gaze for a long moment. "So we're both scared," she typed. "We're both scared," he confirmed. "And we're both here anyway." "We're both here anyway." She looked down at her phone, then back up. "I think that might be the definition of something." "Might be," Noah agreed. She put the phone down on the table at the angle that meant, "I'm staying." He'd noticed this early and never mentioned it, but he watched for it every time, and held up her hand, the sign for more. He made it back. The 4th Saturday Mia couldn't come. She had a birthday party for a classmate, which she attended in the red dress again, on the grounds that it was a formal occasion, and also it was her best dress. Noah dropped her off and drove to Hargrove's and sat across from Harper, and they talked for 3 hours without Mia to mediate, and it was, if anything, better. More concentrated. The slightly edited quality of conversations held in front of a 6-year-old fell away. And what was left was the two of them, direct, with nothing to buffer. They talked about work. Harper described the nonprofit project, and Noah listened with genuine attention, asking questions about the design choices, about what she was trying to make the kids feel when they looked at the materials. She'd never been asked about the emotional intention behind her work. Clients asked about aesthetics, about branding, about whether it would perform. Noah asked what she wanted a child to feel when they picked up the pamphlet. And she realized she'd been answering that question in her head for weeks and had never been given the chance to say it out loud. Capable, she typed. I want them to feel like the space is made for them, not like they're guests in someone else's thing. That comes through in the work, Noah said. I can tell just from the way you describe it. You haven't seen it. I know you well enough to know it comes through, he said, without embarrassment, plainly. She looked at him for a moment. Then she typed, What do you do? I don't think I ever asked. Civil engineer, he said. Infrastructure, mostly. Bridges, mostly. You build things that hold weight. He looked at her. I hadn't thought of it that way. Seems relevant, she typed. He was quiet for a second. Maybe it is. She tilted her head. Do you like it? I used to love it, he said. Before. I loved the problem-solving part. Figuring out how to make something stand that hadn't stood before. How to hold something up. He paused. After Claire, I still did the work, but the love of it got buried under everything else. I was good at it, but not in it. Like everything else. Like everything else, yeah. He looked at his coffee. Lately, though, I had a meeting this week about a pedestrian bridge project. A small one, over a creek, in a park on the north side. Nothing big. But I was in that meeting and I was actually there. I was engaged. I had opinions. I argued about the load distribution for 40 minutes and walked out feeling, he searched for the right word. Alive? She typed. He looked at her. Yeah, he said. Alive. She held his gaze. That's not nothing. No, he said. It isn't. The fifth Saturday they met at the farmer's market instead of Hargrove's because Mia had declared, with the authority of someone who had been thinking about it all week, that they should try new things, and also she wanted to look at the vegetables. Noah had not realized this was an interest of hers and said so, and Mia told him that he should pay closer attention, which he accepted. They walked, Noah walking, Harper rolling beside him, Mia moving in the slightly unpredictable orbit of a child at a market, drawn toward things and then away from them with equal speed. At one of the stalls, a vendor selling handmade pottery was demonstrating a small hand-building technique to a customer, and Mia stopped dead and watched with absolute focus for 2 solid minutes. We should do that, she announced. Make pottery? Noah said. Make things. With our hands. She looked at Harper. Could you do pottery? Harper considered the question. I don't know, she typed. I've never tried. We should find out, Mia said, with the executive certainty of someone who had decided. There's an art workshop at the community center. Mrs. Peterson at school told me about it. They do stuff every Saturday morning. Mia, Harper has, it's accessible, Mia said, with the calm of someone who had already investigated the relevant logistics. I checked on Dad's phone. It says wheelchair accessible on the website. I checked. Noah and Harper looked at each other. She checked, Noah said. She checked, Harper agreed. It starts in 2 weeks, Mia said. I already know the address. Harper looked at her, then at Noah. Something in her face was doing that thing again, that open, unguarded quality that Mia produced in her without effort. She typed, Did you look this up before or after you decided we were going? Before, Mia said honestly. I decided, and then I checked if it was possible. In that order. Always decide first, Mia said. Dad says you can figure out the how after you know the what. Harper looked at Noah. I said it once, he said. She writes things down. She keeps a list. She keeps a list, he confirmed. Harper turned back to Mia. All right, she typed. 2 weeks. Mia nodded once, settled. Then she moved on to the next stall, with the unruffled efficiency of someone who has accomplished the main item on her agenda and can now proceed to the vegetables. But the workshop was still 2 weeks away, and the 2 weeks between contained their own complications. On a Thursday evening, Noah was putting Mia to bed when she said, in the way children say serious things, quietly, looking at the ceiling, Do you love Harper? Noah sat on the edge of her bed. What makes you ask that? You're different, Mia said. You laugh more. And you're in the kitchen cooking actual food. And you look at your phone and make that face. What face? The face like something good is happening, she said. She said it matter-of-factly, not with sentiment, just reporting. Noah was quiet for a moment. I don't know yet, he said honestly. I think I could. I think I'm moving in that direction. Mia thought about this. Does it feel bad? Like you're doing something wrong? The question landed with a precision that took his breath. How do you know to ask that? Because I thought it might, she said. Because of Mom. He looked at his daughter in the dim light of her bedroom, with her stuffed elephant tucked under her arm and her clair-green eyes looking at the ceiling in that careful way she had of thinking before she spoke. It doesn't feel wrong, he said. That surprised me. I thought it would. Mia nodded. I think Mom would be okay with it, she said. She was always okay with things that were good for us. Noah looked at her for a long moment. Yeah, he said quietly. She was. Harper is good for us, Mia said. She's good for you. And she tells me the truth about stuff. She doesn't do the thing where adults make everything easier to say because they think I can't handle it. No, Noah said. She doesn't do that. Mia finally looked at him, directly. I think you should tell her, she said. Not like in a big way, just so she knows where you are. Because she's scared too, I can tell. How can you tell? She watches you, Mia said simply. When you're not looking at her, she watches you like she's checking if you're still there. Noah sat with that for a long time after Mia fell asleep. He sat in the kitchen with the lights low and thought about Harper watching him when he wasn't looking, doing the same quiet arithmetic he'd been doing, trying to figure out if this was real, if it would hold, if the foundation was what it appeared to be. He picked up his phone. It was late, past 10, but Harper kept late hours. She told him she did her best work between 9 and midnight, that her brain ran on a different clock than most people's. He typed, Can I call you? I know it's late. 3 dots appeared almost immediately. I use video, not voice. My implant doesn't do well with phone audio. Can you do video? He switched to video call. She picked up in seconds. She was at her desk, laptop open beside her, the blouse she'd been wearing that day still on. Her hair was down. She looked. He registered it now, clearly and without flinching. She looked like someone he wanted to keep seeing for a very long time. She signed hello and pointed to her phone expectantly. He signed it back, imperfectly, and she gave him the small, approving nod that he had come to need more than was probably dignified. She typed on her laptop, turned it toward the camera. What's up? He took a breath. Mia said something tonight, he said. She waited. She said you watch me when I'm not looking. He paused. She said you look like you're checking if I'm still there. Harper looked at the camera for a long moment without typing anything. I do the same thing, Noah said. I thought you should know that. Her expression shifted, subtle, but he was learning to read it. The slight release around her eyes, the breath she let out that she'd been holding. She typed on the laptop. I didn't think I was that obvious. You weren't. She's 6 and she pays close attention. She really does. Harper, he paused. I want to say something, and I need to say it out loud, because it's the kind of thing that matters more when you don't hide it in a text. He looked at the camera. I don't know exactly what this is yet. I know that's not a satisfying answer. But I know that whatever it is, I'm in it, fully in it, not behind the glass, in it. She looked at him through the screen. Then she turned her laptop and typed slowly. 3 weeks ago, I came into a cafe ready to survive an hour. I was going to endure it and go home and tell Rosa it wasn't terrible. She paused. I don't know how to explain what has happened since then, except to say that I went from surviving to something else. And I don't have a word for it yet either. But I'm in it too. Okay, Noah said. Okay, she typed. They stayed on the call for a while without saying much. She went back to her design work. He made himself a cup of tea. And they existed companionably in each other's peripheral vision through the small window of a phone screen, which should have been awkward and was instead one of the most natural things Noah had done in 3 years. At some point, Mia wandered in, hair all the way sideways, elephant under her arm. She saw Noah on the video call. She walked over and leaned into the frame. Harper waved. Mia signed hello. Then, thank you. Then she looked at the camera very seriously and signed, with slightly imperfect but unmistakable execution, I understand. Harper's face, even through a phone screen, even slightly pixelated, went completely open. She pressed her hand briefly to her mouth. Then she signed back, slowly and clearly, so Mia could follow. I understand too. Mia nodded, satisfied, and went back to bed. Noah watched her go. Then he looked at the phone. She practices, he said. At the table during dinner. She practices the signs while she's eating. Harper had her hand still at her mouth. She typed with the other one. I know. A pause. She showed me last Saturday when you went to get the second round of coffee. She wanted me to see. Noah looked at the camera. She didn't tell me that. She was proud of it. She wanted to show me first. He sat with this for a moment. The image of his daughter, practicing sign language at the dinner table, wanting to show Harper before she showed anyone else. She loves you, he said, quietly, matter of fact. Harper looked at the camera for a long moment. I know, she typed. I love her too. She paused. I didn't plan to. It just happened. She walked into that cafe in her red dress and it just happened. That seems to be the pattern, Noah said. Does it scare you? He thought about it honestly. No, he said. And that's the surprising part. It should scare me. A month ago it would have, but right now it just feels, he paused, like the right size, like a thing that fits. She held his gaze through the screen. A month ago, I came in ready to endure an hour, she typed. And now I'm up at 10:30 talking to you and your daughter, practice sign language at the dinner table. She looked at him. Life is very strange. It really is, Noah said. Is that okay? More than okay, he said. She smiled. The real one. The one that started in her eyes. He had a clear view of it through the phone screen, and he didn't look away. Next Saturday, she typed. The workshop. Next Saturday, he said. The workshop. She held up her hand, the sign for more. He made it back. She ended the call. Noah sat in the kitchen for a while after, in the quiet that was no longer empty, with his tea going cold and his phone face up on the table. And he thought about bridges, about the work of figuring out how to hold something up that hadn't stood before, about load distribution and tension, and the way a thing that looks fragile from a distance can, if you've built it right, hold more weight than anyone thought possible. He thought about what Harper had said. You build things that hold weight. He thought about Mia practicing signs at the dinner table alone, wanting to show Harper first. He thought about Claire saying, "You're going to be a good dad," present tense, like it was still ahead of him. He sat in the kitchen in the good quiet and let himself believe, for the first time in a long time, that she had been right. The community center on Archer Street had been built in the 1970s and renovated twice since then, most recently in a way that had added a ramp at the front entrance and widened the doorways and installed an elevator that worked about 80% of the time. Harper had looked all of this up before agreeing to come. Not because she needed Mia's reassurance. She trusted Mia's research implicitly, which was a sentence she'd never expected to be true about a 6-year-old. But because she had learned, in 3 years of navigating the world from a chair, that the difference between a space that said accessible and a space that actually was accessible was frequently significant and sometimes humiliating. And she preferred to know before she arrived, rather than discover it in front of people she cared about. The elevator was working that Saturday. She noted this with a particular satisfaction of someone who has been disappointed often enough that a working elevator registers as a genuine win. The art workshop met in a room on the 2nd floor. Long tables, good light from windows along one wall. That specific smell of a space where things were regularly made. Paper and paint and something faintly chemical. And underneath it all, something organic, like clay, which was, in fact, the material of the day. The instructor was a woman named Diane, who was in her 60s, and had the unhurried quality of someone who had long since made peace with the fact that making things by hand was slow, and that this was the point. Diane looked at Harper's chair for approximately half a second, then looked at the table setup, then moved one of the chairs out and adjusted the table height with the matter-of-fact efficiency of someone who had done this before and found it unremarkable. Harper felt something in her chest release that she hadn't fully known she was holding. Mia had claimed the spot directly to Harper's left before anyone else could. She arranged her materials with the organizational seriousness she brought to all practical endeavors, and then looked at the clay in front of her with focused anticipation. "What are we making?" she asked Diane. "Whatever you want," Diane said. "That's the whole workshop." Mia considered this. "That's a lot of freedom," she said. "That's the idea," Diane said. Mia looked at Harper. "What are you going to make?" Harper thought about it. She picked up the clay, felt its weight, the cool, dense resistance of it in her palms. She hadn't worked with her hands like this in years. Her work was digital, precise, done on a screen. This was different, slower, more honest somehow, in the way that things you can't undo are more honest than things you can. She typed, "I don't know yet. I'll find out when I start." Mia read this and nodded with great approval. "That's like the decide first thing," she said, "but for making." "Exactly like that," Harper typed. Noah, on Harper's right, had been watching this exchange with the expression of a man who had recently discovered that 2 of the most important people in his life had developed an entire parallel communication system that functioned with remarkable efficiency. He picked up his own clay, turned it over in his hands. "I have absolutely no idea what I'm doing," he said. "Nobody does the first time," Diane said, passing behind them. "That's also the idea." He looked at Harper. She was already working, both hands in the clay, pressing, shaping, learning what it wanted to do. Her face had gone quiet in a way he recognized now, the way it went when she was concentrated, when the thinking part of her stepped back and let something else run for a while. He watched her hands, the ease of them, the confidence, the way she moved through materials like she'd always known how. He started working his own clay and said nothing, and the room filled with the particular sound of a Saturday morning being used well. Low voices, the soft percussion of hands on clay. Diane moving between tables with calm suggestions. And somewhere near the windows, a radio playing something old and unhurried. After about 20 minutes, Mia held up what she'd been making. It was a small figure, rough, lumpy, with an oversized head and arms that stuck out at angles that didn't quite match. But there was something unmistakably intentional about it. The way the figure was leaning slightly forward, as if mid-step. "What is it?" Noah asked. "It's Gerald Fitzgerald," Mia said. "So, you have something for your desk at work?" Noah looked at the clay dog. It was objectively terrible and completely recognizable as a dog. He felt the specific warmth of a thing that is exactly right. "I love it," he said. "I know," Mia said, already starting the next one. Harper had stopped working and was watching Mia with that open, unguarded expression, the one she didn't seem to be able to maintain her usual composure against. She picked up her phone. "What's the second one?" "That one's for you," Mia said, without looking up. "You should have one for your desk, too." Harper looked at the small clay figure taking shape under Mia's hands. She looked at Noah. He was already looking at her. She put the phone down and went back to her own clay. But Noah could see, even from the side, even in profile, that she was blinking more than usual. They worked for another hour. Noah's finished thing turned out to be something between a bowl and a disaster, which Diane charitably described as organic in form. Mia completed 3 small figures, Gerald Fitzgerald, the one for Harper, and the third that she announced was just a shape, but an important one, and declined to elaborate on. Harper made something that surprised them all, including herself. A small, open hand, palm up, fingers slightly curved. Not anatomically perfect, but unmistakably what it was. Offering something, receiving something, both at once. Diane stopped behind her and looked at it. "That's lovely," she said simply. Harper looked at it for a moment. Then she set it down on the table and looked at Noah. He recognized it. The gesture, the hand shape. It was the sign for more. He looked at her. She looked back with those steady, dark eyes and didn't type anything, because there wasn't anything to type. The clay hand said it. He reached over, not making a production of it, and put his hand next to hers on the table. She turned her palm up and laced her fingers through his, and Mia, who absolutely noticed, said nothing whatsoever, which was its own kind of gift. They stayed through the end of the workshop. They helped clean up, Mia with great thoroughness, Noah with willingness, if not precision, Harper with one-handed efficiency while holding her clay piece carefully in the other hand. Diane thanked them and said she hoped to see them next week, and there was nothing performing about it. She meant it. On the way out, waiting for the elevator, Mia looked up at Harper and said, "Can we do this every Saturday?" Harper looked at her, then at Noah. He gave her the expression of a man who was staying entirely out of this negotiation. She typed, "Let's start with next Saturday and see." "That means yes," Mia said to Noah. "That's not what that means," he said. "It's what it means," Mia said with certainty, and walked into the elevator. They had lunch after, a diner 2 blocks from the community center that Mia had spotted from the window and designated as the plan before anyone had confirmed there was a plan. The diner was loud in the good way. Booths patched with tape that had been there long enough to become part of the furniture. A menu that had the ambition of a document that had survived multiple decades by adding lamination rather than subtracting items. They ordered too much food and ate most of it. And Mia had a grilled cheese that she declared the second best grilled cheese of her life. And when Harper typed asking what the best was, Mia said the ones Dad makes on sick days, without any hesitation. And Noah looked at his daughter and felt the full weight of what she'd just given him. Easy as breathing, not even knowing she'd done it. It was after lunch, walking back to where Noah had parked, that things shifted. It happened the way important things often happened. Not with any announcement, not with the ground trembling, just with Harper stopping her chair at the edge of the sidewalk where the curb cut was, and Noah walking beside her, and Mia a few steps ahead investigating something in a shop window, and the afternoon air being sharp and good in the way of late October, and Harper saying nothing, but reaching out and taking Noah's hand as they moved from the sidewalk to the street. Not a significant gesture, not a declaration, just her hand in his, like it had been on their second Saturday across a table in a cafe. Except now they were outside in the October air, and there was no table between them, and they were not two people sitting in the back of a cafe waiting to find out if the other one would leave. He held her hand. They walked. Mia looked back, saw them, and turned back to the shop window with an expression of total neutrality that fooled absolutely no one. That evening, after Noah had dropped Harper home and helped her in, not because she needed it, but because she'd let him, which was a different thing, and after Mia had fallen asleep on the couch with the clay Gerald Fitzgerald sitting on the coffee table in front of her, Noah stood in his kitchen and did something he hadn't done in 3 years. He took Claire's photograph off the shelf, the one from their trip to Maine the summer before Mia was born. Claire laughing at something just off camera, the wind doing something complicated with her hair, and he held it. He'd looked at it every day for 3 years. He'd kept it exactly where it was, because moving it felt like abandonment, and keeping it felt like the only thing he could do. He'd been managing it, the way he managed everything, from a careful distance. He held it now, and looked at it, and let himself feel the full weight of it. Not the managed version, not the functional distance version. The real thing. The grief that was also underneath, the love it came from. Because they were the same thing, had always been the same thing. And he had been so careful about the grief that he'd been careful about the love, too. Keeping them both at arm's length, thinking that was how you survived. "I'm still here," he said, to the photograph, to Claire, to whatever version of her still existed in the space where people go when they leave. "Mia's good. She's so good. She's keeping a list." He stopped. His throat was doing the thing it did. He let it. "I met someone. She's the kind of honest you were. The kind that doesn't leave you anywhere to hide. And she's not you. She's her own whole thing. But she's here, and I think," he paused, "I think you'd like her." I said that to her, actually. She believed me. He stood in the kitchen for another minute, just holding the photograph. Then he set it back on the shelf. In the same place. He wasn't moving it. It was still Claire's, and it was still his, and it was still Mia's, and it belonged exactly where it was. But something was different about the way he set it down. Not removed, not managed, just placed. The way you place something when you know where it goes, and you're not afraid of it anymore. He turned off the kitchen light and went and sat next to his sleeping daughter on the couch. He texted Harper. "She's asleep with her clay dog." 3 dots. Then, obviously, "Good workshop today." "Very good," she typed. "Next Saturday?" "Next Saturday," he confirmed. "Noah." He looked at the screen. Thank you for today, for the whole day, for being there for all of it. A pause. I keep thinking about what Mia said, that you should always decide first and figure out the how after you know the what. He looked at Mia asleep beside him, the clay Gerald Fitzgerald on the table, his daughter's face relaxed and completely trusting. What did you decide? He typed. The dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. He waited. I decided I want this. Whatever this is, wherever it goes. I decided. She paused. I'm still figuring out the how. But the what? I know the what. He sat with that for a moment. Then he typed, Me too. He put his phone down and pulled a blanket over Mia's shoulders and stayed on the couch beside her in the good quiet until she woke up at 7 and told him she was hungry, which she always was, which was one of the most reliable things in his world. 3 weeks later, Harper had dinner at Noah's house for the first time. It was not a romantic dinner. It was Mia's dinner, which meant it was Mia's grandmother's lasagna recipe, because Mia had decided that was what Harper needed to eat, and had communicated this to Noah with the clarity of a directive rather than a request. Noah had made it, imperfectly, the noodles slightly past al dente, the cheese layer a little uneven. And it was the best meal he'd made in 3 years, because he'd made it for someone. Harper arrived at 6 with Rosa, who dropped her off and paused in the doorway just long enough to look at the house, to look at Noah, to look at the warm light coming from the kitchen window, and then nodded with the brisk satisfaction of a person whose long-held opinion has finally been validated by events. I'll be back at 9, Rosa said. Or 10. Text me. She left before Harper could respond. Mia was at the door before Harper had made it through it, already signing hello, and then immediately, without preamble. The lasagna has too much cheese on top. Dad did extra. I told him you would be fine with it. I'm very fine with it, Harper typed. I knew it, Mia said, and went back to the kitchen to supervise the final stages of dinner with the intensity of someone who had waited all week for this event. Harper came through the door and stopped for a moment in the front hallway. She looked at the space, the coat hooks at a height that suggested a tall person, the shoes by the door in a pattern that told a small story about two people's daily exits, the bookshelf visible from the doorway with its double-stacked paperbacks and the Claire photograph on the second shelf. She looked at the photograph for a moment, directly, without looking away. Noah was watching her. She looked at him. She's beautiful, she typed. She was, he said. She still is, Harper typed. In Mia. Every time Mia looks at you. He let that in, completely in. No glass. Come in, he said. The lasagna has too much cheese. I heard, Harper typed. I'm very fine with it. Dinner was loud in the way that dinners are loud when Mia is present and engaged, which she was at maximum capacity that evening. She demonstrated all 14 signs she now knew, in sequence, like a recital. She told Harper about Gerald Fitzgerald's most recent investigation of the oak tree. She explained, with no prompting, the complete plot of the book she was reading, including her editorial opinions on the decisions made by each character and what she would have done differently. She told Harper that her grandmother's lasagna was the only correct lasagna, and that all other lasagnas were approximations of various quality, and that this one was, in her assessment, a solid B+ effort. B+, Noah said. The noodles, Mia said with gentle regret. Harper covered her mouth with one hand, and her expression above it was completely uncontrolled joy. After dinner, Mia helped clear the table. Genuinely helped, not the performative version, and then announced she was going to take a bath and go to bed, which she never announced voluntarily, and Noah recognized it as the 6-year-old version of giving someone privacy, and felt a wave of love for his daughter so strong it was almost structural. He sat across from Harper at the cleared table with their coffee. The house was quiet except for the distant sound of water running in the bathroom down the hall. The kitchen light was warm, and the night outside was cold in the way of November, and they were inside it, at his table, in the life he had been watching from behind glass for 3 years and was now, finally, standing inside of. "How are you?" he said. Not the polite version, the real one. Harper looked at him. "Good," she typed. Then she thought about it and typed again. "Actually good. Not functional good. Actually good." "Yeah," he said. "Me too." "This is a good house," she typed. "It feels used. The right kind of used. Like people live here for real." "Mia lives here for real," he said. "I've been catching up." "You've caught up," she typed. "I can feel it." He looked at her across his kitchen table. He had been thinking for a few weeks about something he wanted to say. He'd been turning it over the way he turned problems over. Looking at the load, checking the distribution, figuring out whether the structure could hold what he wanted to put on it. "Harper," he said. She looked at him. "I want to say something. And I know the timing of it matters. And I know we've been doing this it's been 2 months, which is not a long time." "Say it," she typed. "Don't qualify it first. Just say it." He looked at her, at the steadiness in her face, at the woman who had come into a cafe ready to endure an hour and had instead rearranged something fundamental in the way he understood what his life was supposed to feel like. "I love you," he said. "I don't mean it as a destination. I mean it as where I am right now. I'm here, and it's true, and I wanted you to know it." Harper looked at him across the kitchen table with her dark eyes and her hands in her lap, and her whole self very still. He waited. Not anxiously, the way you wait when you've said the true thing, and the truth doesn't need defending. She reached out and took his hand from across the table, both of hers around his, and held it. Then she picked up her phone with one hand, keeping the other in his, and typed. "I've been in love with you since you sat back down." She paused. "That first day, when I told you to leave and you sat back down and said you weren't pretending." She looked at the screen, then at him. "I didn't let myself know it until later, but it was there from that moment. You sat back down and something in me stopped waiting for the worst thing." He looked at her hands over his. He thought about that first Saturday, the bell above the cafe door, her face crumpling, her hands lifting to tell him to go, and him sitting down anyway. Not heroically, not with any plan, just sitting down because leaving had felt wrong and staying had felt like the only honest thing. "I didn't know that's what I was doing," he said.
"I know," she typed. "That's why it worked."
From down the hall, Mia's voice.
"Dad, I need the good shampoo, not the other one."
"It's in the cabinet under the sink," he called back. A pause.
"Found it."
Harper was smiling. The real one, all the way, no reservation in it. And Noah looked at her smile and thought that this was what it felt like to be in the room. Not watching, not managing, not doing the things from a safe distance. Here, present, in the actual room with the actual people and the terrible lasagna noodles and the shampoo in the cabinet under the sink. He thought about Bridges, about the problem solving, the load and the tension and the question of what could hold. He thought about how the work of it, the real work, was never about building something that couldn't be moved or affected or changed by the weight it carried. It was about building something that could be moved, could flex, could absorb the weight without pretending the weight wasn't there. He looked at Harper, at the small clay hand still in her bag. He could see its edge. The one she'd made that morning in the workshop, palm up, fingers curved. More. Receiving and offering at once. "Can I ask you something?" he said. "Always." "What do you want? Not, what are you okay with? What do you actually want? From this, from all of it?" She looked at him for a long moment. Then she typed, "I want Saturdays. I want to keep learning things, new things, hard things, things that require my hands and my brain and other people to be real with me." She paused. "I want to watch Mia grow up. I want to argue with Rosa about ramps and win occasionally." Another pause. "I want to be in a life that moves, not one I'm just surviving in." She looked at him. "I want you in it. Specifically you. Not someone. You." He held her gaze. "Okay," he said. "Okay?" "Okay," he said again. "We do that. We build that. One Saturday at a time." She looked at him for a moment. Then she typed, "You know Marcus is going to be unbearable about this." "He already is," Noah said. "He texted me this week asking if I'd returned the gray shirt yet." "What did you say?" "I told him I was keeping it." "Why?" He thought about it. "Because you told me it looked like a funeral, and then you stayed anyway," he said. "I figure it's lucky." Harper looked at him for a moment, and then she laughed. The real laugh. The one from that first afternoon that had arrived like something found. And it filled his kitchen the same way it had filled the back of Hargrove's cafe, like a light coming on in the next room. Mia appeared in the kitchen doorway in her pajamas, damp-haired, elephant under her arm. She looked at Harper laughing. She looked at her father watching Harper laugh with his whole face open. She looked at this, carefully, for a moment. The way she looked at things she was deciding were important. The way she had looked at the couple's porch with the wind chimes. The way she'd looked at Claire's photograph on the shelf. In the specific way children look at things they know are precious, that they're learning to understand. Then she walked to the table and climbed into the chair beside Noah and leaned against his arm and said nothing. Just leaned. Just stayed. Noah put his arm around her without looking away from Harper, who was still smiling, watching both of them. Harper reached out across the table and touched Mia's small hand. Mia turned her palm up, without instruction, the way she'd seen Noah do it. Harper's hand rested in hers. 3 people at a kitchen table in November, with cold outside the windows, and coffee going warm, and a clay dog on the shelf in the other room, and somewhere in Harper's bag, a clay hand that meant more, sitting in the light that was ordinary and complete and fully inhabited. This was not the end of their hard things. It was not the last time Noah would sit with grief at 3 in the morning. Not the last time Harper would hit a wall she hadn't seen and have to find a way around it. Not the last time Mia would carry something heavier than a 6-year-old should have to carry. Not the last time any of them would be scared or tired or uncertain about the structure holding. But they were in the room, all 3 of them, in it. And when Harper signed more across the kitchen table, and Mia signed it back, and Noah made it last and slightly imperfect and completely meant, it was not a beginning and it was not an ending. It was something better than both. It was a life, fully lived, by 3 people who had each been taught by loss how rare and unrepeatable that was, and who had chosen, with everything they knew and everything they'd survived, to stay.